I would like to call the Peoria Public School District 150 Board of Education meeting to order for May 9th, 2016. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Floyd.
Here.
Mrs. Costick. Here. Mrs. Jackson.
Here.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer.
Here.
Mr. Adler.
Here.
Mrs. Ross.
Here. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes from April 25th, 2016?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Floyd.
Aye.
Mrs. Costick. Aye. Mrs. Jackson.
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Adler.
Aye.
Mrs. Ross.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1.
Thank you. Tonight, our Community Contribution Award recognizes the Peoria Medical Society Alliance. The Peoria Medical Society Alliance is a not-for-profit organization existing to serve as partners with the Peoria Medical Society in promoting the health, the education, and the quality of life for the people of our community. For many years, the Peoria Medical Society Alliance has worked on 3 main projects, including the Cinderella Project with Manual High School, the Hard Hats for Little Heads, Valeska Hinton Center, Valeska Hinton Early Childhood Center, and the community services at Whittier Primary School. A 4th project, Girls Light Our Way, is not an official Peoria Medical Society Alliance project. It was started by one of their members and created to complement the Cinderella Project. The project targets junior high school age girls at Manual High School, Manual Academy, and promotes healthy living and lifestyles. PMSA provides some funds for this project through the community health related grants. At this time, I'd like to introduce Debbie Olson from the Peoria Medical Society Alliance, current president, to give us some comments. And also Mary Claire. Garrity, go ahead and introduce yourself. President-elect.
Thank you, President Ross, and the rest of the school board for this recognition and honor. And thank you to Dr. Karat and also to Chris Copeland. As president of the Peoria Medical Society Alliance, I am proud of how we serve in our community. As spouses of physicians, the Peoria Medical Society Alliance serves our community in a number of ways, as you will hear more about this. Here is Mrs. Jill D'Alicorn to speak about our volunteer work at Whittier Primary.
Okay, the first thing I'd like to share tonight is a message to the faculty and staff of Peoria Public Schools. Thank you so much for the dedication and professionalism that you demonstrate every day in educating the future of Peoria, our kids. The members of the PMSA who volunteer in the schools know what you do, and you're awesome. We have so much respect for you. Thank you to the parents who send our students to school every day ready to learn. And to the students, we're lucky to even know you. You have welcomed our volunteering, first at Ting and then at Whittier Primary School. We've been working in your schools for 18 years now. We currently have volunteers in the K, first, and second grade classrooms at Whittier. Most of us support the teacher we work with 3 to 4 hours a week. The PMSA has also provided uniforms, school supplies, books for the classrooms, instructional materials, and teacher appreciation breakfasts. Way back in the day, I've been told, we bought a washer and dryer for Ting. In my view, the best product of our association and partnership is the opportunity to see what our teachers and students accomplish every day. Again, thank you for this opportunity and for your appreciation today.
Thank you, Jill. This year, we added a special program at Whittier Primary. The American Medical Association Alliance spearheads a national SAVE program. SAVE, S-A-V-E, stands for Stop All Violence Everywhere. This is the 20th anniversary of the SAVE project. In recognition, we supplied Hands Are Not for Hitting activity books for all students in kindergarten and first grades, and You Can Stop Bullies activity books for all students in the third and fourth grades. Lynn Lane is our coordinator at the school, and we definitely appreciate her. Here to talk about our Cinderella project is our committee chairperson, Mrs. Jennifer Hawkins.
Hello, thank you.
Hello.
I've been with PMSA since 2008, and that's when I started the joined the Cinderella Project. The Cinderella Project actually was started in 2003 by Joanne Irachek at Manual Academy, and we started in the teacher's lounge with a few dresses given to a few girls. Now this is our 14th year, and we have over 20 girls coming in and receiving dresses, purses, jewelry, shoes, and everything that they could use for the prom. It's one of my favorite activities. We collect dresses and donations throughout the year. We've done everything as up to beg, borrow, and not steal to get all the materials that we need. And I can't thank the staff at Manual Academy enough. They have the girls fill out an application. They have to have good attendance, grades, and behavior. And the sergeant in the ROTC room, the room that we use, he gets it all ready for us, and he's such a great big help for our Cinderella project.
Thank you, Jennifer. And to share about our Hard Hats for Little Heads at Valeska Hinton, here is our president-elect, soon-to-be president, Mrs. Mary Claire Garrity.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you again for this wonderful recognition. Our members really take a lot of joy in the projects that we provide in the community, and I think they have a very warm place in their heart for children and students. And so the fact that we've been able to partner in so many ways with the Peoria Public Schools has just been a wonderful draw for our members to provide even more community service. The Hard Hats for Little Heads program has been active at Valeska Hinton Early Childhood Learning Center since at least 2002, as far as our records go. There is a session where all of the kindergartners come in and learn about bicycle safety. We have either one of our very well-known community health educators, Patty Bash, or someone from the Safety Town program come and do a little safety, bicycle safety, and just street safety, rollerblading, scootering, everything these days with the children. And then we measure their heads and provide each and every one of them with a bicycle helmet. And then there's, of course, a snack and drink to follow. So they seem to be very, very excited about it. They're very attentive to the speakers, and we've had a lot of fun doing that. We normally have at least 5 to 10 of our members there every year, in addition to the 1 or 2 members who chair the program, who do months of preparation, securing the right size helmets and funds for the snacks and things. What I'd like to say is that now that Valeska Hinton is going to become primarily a preschool, from what we understand in the news, is that we would like to talk about the Adopt a School program that we understand is being resurrected, and hopefully we'll be able to make a contact within the Peoria Public Schools to continue that program, potentially at Whittier, and maybe even advance our relationship with the Peoria Public Schools to the point where we can actually be an Adopt a School sponsor. So again, we'd like to thank you for this very special honor today. We will share it with all of our members, and thank you again for giving us the opportunity to work in your schools.
And thank you for all that you do. And on behalf of the Board of Education and Superintendent and staff, Dr. Karat has a little token of our appreciation.
Thank you, Ms. Ross, and
We wanted to thank the Peoria Medical Society Alliance. You're also amazing, and we thank you for all of your efforts and your collaboration. We're really pleased that you're on board to work with us to position our kids for an amazing, bright future. So we just really appreciate your ongoing passion, support, love for the kids and staff, and all of the amazing work that you're doing. I'll make sure that Sarah Oakford, who's over the Adopt a School program, make some contact with you. We can make both of those things happen. So again, thank you for all of the wonderful programs. I can just visualize the kids excited about their snacks and, the measuring and the dresses. And I remember when I was at Manual, we had the closet. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next on the agenda, awards and recognition, Peoria's finest teacher.
Good evening.
Ivana.
Peoria's Finest Teacher is a monthly recognition that we are sponsoring for those members of PFT that go above and beyond, exemplify best practices in teaching, and/or reach out to the community and parents to be involved in our schools. The teachers in this district work so hard to serve the children and families of Peoria each day, and we want to showcase this positive effort. We want to thank our winner's principal, Carrie Berger, and any faculty, friends, and family that are here in support of this month's winner. Our nominators of this month's winner are Rachel Sides and Sue Wiest. Come up, ladies. And this month's Peoria's Finest Teacher is Julie Henson at Thomas Jefferson. Come up, Julie.
Hi, Julie has been teaching with District 150 for 34 years. She's a teacher in the MCA program, which is a program for students with orthopedic disabilities and other health impairments. Julie is very knowledgeable in her field. She has also, along with being just in the MCA program, she's been a co-teacher in the regular kindergarten inclusion class for over 15 years. She is patient and kind, and she's always the calm in the storm. She works above and beyond to meet her students' needs. Julie meets individually with the families of her students, and she's always makes sure that the families have a voice and are a part of the team of professionals working with their child. Julie has helped many regular education teachers become comfortable with teaching students with disabilities. She demonstrates the positive benefits of team teaching and helps to make the inclusion classroom a sound learning environment for all students.
As if her time in the classroom isn't busy enough, Julie also finds time to head up the school's Young Authors program for the district. She dedicates her time to the school's ULT committee, serving as our kindergarten representative, and she also serves on the parent community team, helping bridge the gap between the school and parent community. She seeks ideas out on how to get parents more involved in the school community. This is a passion of Julie's because she feels it is so important for the parent to be involved in their child's education. It also needs to be noted that just last week, Julie was nominated and won the Outstanding Special Education of the Year award. You can see that she's made an impact on the lives of both students and the staff at Thomas Jefferson. It's truly been an honor to work with Julie Henson, and she will be sorely missed as she enters a new chapter in her life, retirement.
It's hard when you listen to all that stuff because everybody works so hard every day. And I was lucky to get my first job with District 150 right out of college. I got to start at the Developmental Center when it first opened, which was a challenge. And then I got lucky and got into Thomas Jefferson. I've got to be there all this time, not move around, and I really appreciate that. I wanted to thank the district for helping me further my education. And I've worked with wonderful therapists and staff all these years. We do try to make the inclusion model work at our school. It's not easy, but there's lots of great people trying to trying to do that. Like I said last week, I think the exciting part of teaching is just learning from the families that you encounter, and there's always a student each year that teaches you something you didn't know before. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Most improved attendance. Dr. Karat.
Congratulations, Julie. Thanks, Ms. Ross. Again, we're going to recognize the top 3 schools for improving attendance for the month of April. But before I do that, I just wanted to mention that we actually have some schools that are doing an awesome job with either 95 or 96% attendance rate, at least for the month of April, and they are Charter Oak and Keller, Northmore, Woodrow Wilson, Lindbergh, and Washington. So kudos to those schools. And we also have a number of schools with a 94%, 93.7, and so forth. But the 3 buildings with the top attendance when compared last April's attendance to this April attendance, they are, in terms of the top 3 improving attendance overall for the previous month, they are, in order, Von Steuben. Do we have anybody from Von Steuben here? Come on down. Thank you. And also Woodrow Wilson. Do we have anyone from Woodrow Wilson? Woodrow Wilson, and then Peoria High. So Von Steuben went from, let's say, 90% to 92%. That was awesome. And Woodrow Wilson, 94% to 95%. And Peoria High last April, 77%, 78%, if we round it up to 82%. So let's have the 2 representatives from those buildings come up, please. I know we've had Mr. Elliott several times. What are you guys doing at Von Steuben?
We're calling parents. I mean, we call them. We have somebody that calls them when they're tardy. I happen to get the pleasure of writing tardies, and they get tired of seeing me. So I tell them, you got to get here on time. So that's what we're trying to do. Just make sure that they're here every day on time.
Nag and nurture, right?
Oh, yes.
Nagging
is the big word, nurturing second, but yes, we do. And they, get tired of hearing it, so they show up.
I like it. Thank you.
thank
We
you.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Keep it up, please.
I'm going to try.
Thank you. And Mr. Elliott, we have an announcement. Why don't you, it's amazing, 77 to 82, thank you. Something is happening, so you can tell us a little bit of what because you've been sort of hitting this mark this year, month after month after month. I know we're trying to get to the 90-ish, right?
Yes,
We're
we
going
are.
to get there.
Yes, we are.
So let's share a little bit of what we're doing at Peoria High, and also let's talk about what's happening tomorrow in the weight room.
Oh,
Is that okay?
Yes,
All right,
please.
awesome, and thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
That pencil just won't, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We are not where we want to be, of course, but when you look at education, especially any statistical analysis, 3%, anything beyond 3% is considered significant. So I believe 8 of the 9 months, Peoria High has been 4 to 6% every month. So we're proud of what our students are doing, our staff. Special thanks to our homeschool facilitators who are doing a lot of the legwork, the phone calls, visiting homes. And that's making a huge difference. Tomorrow night at Peoria High School, weather permitting, we have several events going on with soccer, track, baseball, and softball. So we're having an open house due to the generous contributions of Golden State Warriors NBA champion Sean Livingston, Peoria High grad, contributed a lot of dollars out of his own pocket to help create a fitness center at Peoria High School, so please come on out. We're opening the doors at 5:30. We'll give tours, and we'll take you throughout the entire sports complex to show off the great facilities at Peoria High School, which are making a huge difference. It's allowed us to open a athletic PE every hour of the day. through our PE program that started just after Christmas. So all of our varsity athletes are able to go down to the fitness center every single day, every hour, and get a next level workout in. So we're very proud of that.
I'll be there.
Okay.
This is yours.
Yes.
Thank you again.
And we appreciate these banners. We're not where we want to be, but they're proudly hanging in our foyer. And the kids are asking all the time, even high school kids, when are we getting our next banners? So it's making a big difference. So appreciate the recognition.
Thank you. Thank you. Under district presentations, the program budget reduction recommendations, FY17, and budget amendment FY16. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Let's do announcements first. I'm trying to get this night over. Mr. Adler, you have an announcement?
Yes. The Gerald M. Brookhart Arts and Education Spring Celebration continues at the Peoria County Courthouse Plaza and will continue through May 24th. Students from Hines, Manual, Lindbergh, and Rolling Acres will perform tomorrow. Whittier, Washington, and Calvin Coolidge also have performances this week. Complete schedule for performances is on the district website, www.psd150.org.
Thank you. Other announcements?
I have
Ms.
two.
Whitmire.
I get two this time.
Okay.
It's hard to believe that our current school year is already coming to a close. This is just a reminder for parents that high school final exams will take place on Friday, May 20th, Monday, May 23rd, and Tuesday, May 24th. High school students will be dismissed following the completion of their exams. The last day for all students is Tuesday, May 24th. All kindergarten through 8th grade students will be dismissed 1 hour early on the last day of school. And although we traditionally think of the summer months as carefree and relaxing, the reality is it can be a time of stress for parents and students. Parents, especially those who work or attend school, need activities for their children that are safe, age-appropriate, healthy, and reduce the academic summer slide. For many of the families served by Peoria Public Schools, the loss of a school-supplied nutritious breakfast and lunch threatens parents' ability to provide their children's most basic needs. Peoria Public Schools' annual Food, Friends, and Fun program is designed to help families address these needs. Through the Food, Friends, and Fun initiative, the district and its food service provider, Sodexo, nutritious meals, breakfasts, and lunches will be served to students attending all of the district's summer programs provided at 11 district school sites and approximately 21 community agencies holding summer camps. Meals will not only be served to students registered for the camps, but to any person age 18 and under. During the summer of 2015, the Summer Meals Program provided more than 29,370 breakfasts and 40,200 lunches from 8 school sites and the Peoria Housing Authority, using at least 7 vehicles to deliver meals each day. This initiative brings meals to where the students will be this summer, learning and having fun. The registration deadline for summer programs has now been extended to Friday, May 13th at 4 p.m. and is now open to all students in the specified grade level. The Peoria Public Schools learning programs and summer camps are listed with dates and times on our district website, www.psd150.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Other announcements?
Yes.
District staff have been working with the Peoria Federation of Teachers to move quickly through our staffing process for next year. We anticipate all recalls of honorably dismissed teachers to take place over the next couple of weeks. We have also scheduled a hiring fair to interview potential teacher candidates at Woodruff Career Technical Center on Wednesday, May 18th, from 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. So that's May 18th from 3 to 6. We had 9 teachers actually visit our district last Friday to tour our schools and our community, thanks to the Peoria Chamber of Commerce for hosting lunch and the Convention and Visitors Bureau for guiding our candidates through our city. Once our internal staffing processes are complete, we hope to hire, and we will have positions, so we do hope to hire outside candidates and fill as many positions as possible before the end of this month.
Okay. Ms. Jackson.
Graduation is fast approaching and will take place for our high schools on Saturday, May 21st at Bradley University Renaissance Coliseum. Peoria High School ceremony will take place at 10 a.m., Manual Academy at 3, Richwoods High School at 7, We anticipate all ceremonies to be complete within 1.5 hours, depending on the size of your child's school. Free parking is available on Bradley campus, including the parking deck next door to the Coliseum and in the campus town area. Please do not park on residential streets. Some neighborhoods are tollway zones. Jameson School will hold its graduation at Jameson on Tuesday, May 24th at 6 o'clock. Congratulations to all of our graduates of the Peoria Public School.
Thank you. Ms. Costa?
Parents, just a reminder that it is not too early to get your child in for their physical and immunizations for next fall. Peoria Public Schools will require first day compliance on August the 17th, 2016. Parents can visit the website of www.psd150.org/enrollment for health information and to see other requirements for student enrollment next year. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The Peoria Jazz All-Stars will present their 23rd annual evening of jazz and entertainment this Friday, May 13th at 6 p.m. at the Peoria Riverfront Museum. You can join the All-Stars for an evening of great jazz music and delicious desserts. Funds raised will go toward the group's future travels and general expenses. The All-Stars, under the direction of Andy Tinsman, welcome your participation. The doors open at 5:45, desserts served at 6, and are provided by Cracked Pepper. The All-Stars combo performs at 6:15. The All-Stars perform at 17. The admission is only $5, and additional donations are highly encouraged. And if you were at the State of the Schools last week, I believe some of them were playing there, and they were terrific. They did a great job. And I would say that encourage you to attend. Thank you.
Other announcements? Okay, I don't think we had, just a quick announcement, that the elite graduation is May 19th at Riverside Church. There will be graduating approximately 164 young people, both seniors and also the Elite Academy. Is there, Ms. Jenkins, is there any other information? It's just, it's at 6 o'clock on May 19th at Riverside Church. These are District 150 and other districts, surrounding district young people. Go ahead.
Because the keynote speaker will be the current director of the FBI, it will be a ticketed event, so you must have a ticket to be admitted, and tickets can be obtained through the elite graduates, but there will be no admission to the building at Riverside Church without a ticket received in advance.
Okay. Thank you. Any other announcements? That's it? Okay. Now, district presentation.
Good evening. I will be sharing the process and recommendations for the program committee budget reductions going forward into FY17. We started by brainstorming ideas for reductions, and it involved 8 large group discussions, which included administrators, teachers, and other staff. We then broke off into the smaller subgroups to more deeply evaluate specific programs, contracts, processes. A couple of examples would be the reconfiguration that took a lot of time and energy, and it was really an exciting process. We also looked at assessment. That was another small group involving curriculum. And our main focus was on the education fund, but an example of something that affected another fund would be the reconfiguration as far as it impacting the transportation fund, as far as the busing. There'd be some areas that are still in progress. We're looking at Skyward, which is our finance and student management and employee management area, and trying to see what areas of that we maybe could utilize more fully and what areas we could cut from that invoice. We reviewed the current programs to ensure they're aligned with the strategic plan and that they're cost efficient. We reviewed current service contracts to verify need and cost effectiveness. reviewed processes to discuss areas of opportunity for improvement, and considered choices to increase revenue. Some of these items we brought up about a month and a half ago, and we want to proceed with those. And one would be to eliminate college bound. We feel that the activities can be picked up through the AVID activities. We will reduce the technology expenditures by $300,000 and curriculum ed fund expenditures by $100,000. We're excited that we've come up with a kind of a new solution for reducing the assessment costs, that we'll be able to eliminate the easy CBM and DIBELS, that NWEA will be reduced for high school only, and that we'll be able to replace the K-8 with another vendor. And that's going to save $242,376, so that was well worth the effort to research that. We're also looking at eliminating the data analysis tool software, that's Qualtrics and SAS, for $17,300, and to eliminate the AIO discretionary funds for $100,000. We are also reducing the superintendent discretionary funds by $50,000. We renegotiated the Pinpoint contract for FY17, and that saves $73,650. It would still be $102,000 cost during FY17, but we believe that through further analysis and work that we should be able to eliminate the $102,000 as well, so that is why it's over in the FY18 column. But we do need a year to implement any changes. We want to reduce elite or move to individual title budgets by $50,000. And then I will continue the work on flexing the federal salaries with already existing non-personnel items. And what this is in regards to is mainly Title I and Title II. We've already done this within IDEA a few years ago. It was an easier process there because of the number of aides. It's going to be a little more difficult within Title I, but it's something that I believe we can accomplish, and that's for $200,000. Then, of course, what started everything as far as reconfiguration, our discussion within program committee was to remove the TJ portable classroom. That has no impact in year one as far as savings. There's costs, in fact, to remove it, but the benefit here will be the savings of $50,000 in future years, year after year, not having to pay the $50,000 per year. For revenue enhancements, that was really quite a difficult area. As we mentioned before, again, a month and a half ago, charging the $30 fee for cosmetology, hair braiding, culinary, and barbering. That would bring in $2,500. Increasing the driver's ed fee from $50 to $150 to help cover the costs of the program. Free reduced lunch students, there would still be no charge. This would be a one-time charge to the regular income families. It will also be really important to support Tom Simpson and Cheryl Sanphilip as they work and help us work towards reaching a 1% increase in ADA. Each 1% can bring in $200,000. Of course, that's not for the current year. The idea is we would do this work during the FY17 year, and hopefully this would bring in the $200,000 in FY18. But all the work and effort that we can, particularly in the first 3 months of the school year, will really benefit the district. We also are looking at hiring a collection company. We haven't had one in a few years now, but we need to reinstitute that to make sure that we're collecting all of the fees that we are charging and that some families fail to pay. So we will go ahead and pursue that within the next few months. And what we have determined is it would be for the current amounts due, not that we would go back historically.
Question. The $200,000 in ADA, what specifically is that? I'm not.
Okay, average daily attendance, and that is if we can bring it up by 1% in particular in the first 3 months of the year, because that's when we have the highest average daily attendance anyway, and so that is what you use as your highest 3 months. If we could, in particular, obviously we want it all year, but in particular, bring it up there,
So
that would help.
Yeah,
It would increase
the
general state aid.
Americans with Disability Act, so I looked.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Average
that's
daily
it.
attendance.
Average daily attendance,
Okay.
sorry, acronym
There's too
there.
many acronyms.
Right.
You're right.
And then finally on this.
I have a
Oh, sorry.
question. I have a question also. On the $30 fee for the cosmetology, hair braiding, culinary, and barbering, what happens if kids can't pay that?
What we want to do is kind of work that, Ravonda's kind of looking into that, work that into the program. There can be situations where if you had family members come in, for example, in cosmetology, there is a fee for that, so you could work it off in that manner. But we would work with all of the students to make it work for everybody so that nobody would be excluded.
The other thing is just a comment, it sort of bothers me. When it was $50 for the driver's ed fee, it was $50, but now what you're telling me is that only the students, which is the lesser amount, have to pay $150, and the free and reduced lunch have to pay nothing.
Right.
I don't think that's fair. I mean, and it's $37,000, I understand, but it's a drop in the bucket to our budget. I just don't think it's fair that some kids have to pay because their parents might have a little better job in other. I don't think you should charge the kids that are on free reduced lunch, but I don't think we should be making that much of a difference for the kids just because we think they can afford it. I mean, they may not be on free and reduced lunch, but we got a lot of families out there who don't have $150 to send their child to driver's ed.
And we don't have to, it's a recommendation.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
That's why I said I'm just making a comment.
Right, because right now, those families are paying $50, and we have a lot of kids attending private schools, so
Right.
we're end up subsidizing.
Yeah, this is for Notre Dame, that we
Notre
provide driver's ed behind the wheel for Notre Dame and Peoria Christian and all these other schools also, so it would apply to those students as well, so.
We can go as high as what, 250?
You can go 250 without a waiver from the state.
I'm not really worried about the parochial school kids, to be perfectly honest with you.
Right.
I'm worried about our kids.
Yeah, if there was a way to tier it, we could, but.
There's a lot of people out there who do not have $150, even if they don't meet the free and reduced lunch levels.
And
Go ahead, Ms. Jackson.
I understand that these are recommendations, but I totally agree with that. So you'll have my voice to say that's something that should not happen, to take it up from 50 to 150 for our students.
And don't get me wrong, I appreciate you guys coming up with every idea you can. I understand that's what you're doing, so.
Right, it was just the revenue area is just a really
Sure it is.
difficult area where,
Absolutely.
just.
And currently, we lose about $200,000 a year in driver's ed, and there was some question about whether driver's ed was even required, but it is required. If you have a 9th through 12th grade school district in the state of Illinois, you are required to do both classroom and behind the wheel, and we get some state funding, but not nearly enough to cover the expenses.
So it's an unfunded mandate that has to be done.
And this might be something we can bring back, the revenue section. We want to move ahead with those other areas, but for the revenue, well, we can bring that back again for further discussion.
Okay, I had a couple of things in the revenue section, of course. The fees for cosmetology, braiding, culinary, and barbering, those aren't the only certificated kind of programs that we're doing. Why did we leave the other programs out?
I think it was because they have to have some kind of a kit, there's actual product, and to just get some buy-in, that we know that those packages are more expensive than $30, but just to have some contribution from the student family component there, but it's because they have physical items that they are given that they would personally use for the program.
Okay, well, I understand I know exactly what the price is for that, but perhaps we can put it on the school to try to help break, because these young people come from all different schools, to participate in this, but, so you're saying that the others that are not listed do not have.
So the others that are not listed, the bulk of their fees come from our perfect money. A lot of what comes for cosmetology, hair braiding, culinary and barbering, some of the stuff we do get from them does come from Perfect, but not everything. Perfect is a money from the federal government that is funding these programs. So that's why we said we would just charge this minimal fee. And a lot of the things that we use for that isn't covered by that. So that small fee would cover that. The other programs that we do, some of it's not even, it's it's not consumable stuff with what they're doing. For instance, in construction trades, a lot of the projects we do are for others, and they buy those supplies themselves, the people that we're doing the work for. Auto body, same thing, they're paying for those supplies that our kids work on. So that's why those at this time have not been. If we start doing our own work and doing, then we can. But right now, those programs, a lot of the stuff we're, either people are buying or we're selling stuff to fund back those programs.
So
I understand.
What's
Go
the
ahead.
cost per kid?
Say that again?
What's the cost per kid in, for example, cosmetology? You talked about the heads.
Right,
that need to be
heads start out at like $80, and we go through, one kid will go through several heads throughout the year. Same thing in the hair braiding part of it. We also give each kid a kit that comes with clippers and scissors and those types of things that are inside of that kit. So, and they keep that over the 2 years because they need it. Since it's a 2-year program. We don't have that type of thing for our other programs. They don't get those.
I'm familiar with what the cost is. All I'm saying is, I don't want to see kids eliminated because of.
They will not be. What we have, when we did registration, we made sure that people knew that they would not be if they couldn't afford the $30. Like I said, a lot of times in the shop, kids are given tips. And so we'll have ways to be able to get that money if they need help. So nobody's going to be eliminated from the program because of that fee.
I personally believe that everybody should have, some investment. That's not a problem. I'm
Okay.
just saying, maybe we could be more creative as to how they get those investments. That's one of the ways you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then the other question I had was on fees for transcripts, and that in the past, we had been not necessarily cited, but kind of, ridiculed for not allowing kids to graduate because they owed fees. Now, these fees that you're talking about here, is that going to eliminate them from, or prohibit them from being able to graduate?
No. What I was talking about there is when somebody comes into the front desk here at the administration building and they want to get transcripts from, 1998, and they need to get that picked up, that should be a $5 charge. That's what we were doing a few years ago. We just need to reinstitute that when you come in to ask for transcripts and immunizations that we store for many, many, many years, it takes time to go and research that, find it, make copies, and deliver it. So we just want to go back, and that could even be a student that did just graduate recently, but if they need that service, then we need to go ahead and, have a charge for it when you come here.
Just about everywhere else, but I thought when you said collections, maybe we get a collection agency.
Go after them that. No, that was just to reinstitute that. And the reason those two items are down there to say, well, what are you going to bring in? Well, not exactly sure yet, but as the superintendent said, well, more than we are now, as far as, collections. So that's kind of, I'm not sure yet, but it did definitely help to have a collection agency, and it also does bring in revenue. There's many, many, many people that come to us wanting their old records, so.
Will the transcript fees apply to graduating seniors that are needing to send transcripts to colleges and schools?
I think this is more a historical, that when they just come in and do that.
Parchment, so that doesn't
Okay.
cost them. Yeah, we do all that through parchment.
Okay.
Which is online.
This is for past,
Right. Okay,
past
I got
students
one.
that come in
Okay.
here and want past, we used to charge $5 for it. It kind of went away. Now we're planning on, or we're talking about implementing it,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Well, then, on this slide
Ms.
here.
Jackson has a question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I was just going to comment, the fees and transcript, that holds true for anyone that wants to be a police officer or firefighter, must have a high school transcript. So they could be 21 and working, or 23 and working, and that $5 probably would not hurt.
Right, it would not be a
Yeah.
hardship. So on this slide, what I would recommend, we'll just bring back and have further discussion on the driver's ed area, since we had some disagreement on that. We'll go ahead and bring the slide back and have further discussion.
Well, just opportunities for just feedback, not disagreement, but
Just-
feedback.
Right, yes, to get feedback. so.
Just a question, what do ICC and Bradley charge for their transcripts?
Oh, I think Bradley was, 15?
Yeah, I was thinking the
It was
10 to
high.
15, maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember, I've done it before, but I don't remember what it
Last time I did,
was.
it was only $2 or $3 at ICC.
Bradley was high.
We can check on that, too, and do a comparison.
bring that back.
And then I don't want to go in, line by line here, but that we have our suggested list of union negotiation items that we'll talk to the teachers' union on. Next, we reviewed the staffing needs, considered the impact of the reconfiguration on staffing needs throughout the district, making adjustments, I can say that for Quest and the magnet schools, that had to come into play, and then adjusting for program needs as it impacted the building staff levels.
What would be the adjustments for question specific?
Oh, the students that exit there, to see what impact that is on each individual building as they exit to go over to the 5th grade. So it was just a matter of still making adjustments and what that would do for our staffing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Thanks.
Okay, then going through these items, we have the Medicaid part-time director, a savings then of $87,150, reducing teachers by 3. And on that, I wanted to have just a couple other comments on kind of the why we aren't seeing a larger number there, or why it is that number. We basically wanted to go through the reconfiguration and adequately staff each of the schools. And within that, you would see several cuts. I was thinking between 8 and 10. And then we needed to consider the PLC meetings and Encore, Fine Arts area. What we were doing is working on equity. So by basically giving up in one area that we've talked about before, you're able to support another area and find equity between the buildings. We were looking at district-wide equity there. Then we had adding 1 counselor, and that was at Manual. Reducing a building monitor, reducing 2.5 for interventionists, reducing 15.5 aides, reducing 6.5 administrators, reducing 2 10-month clerical, and reducing 3 12-month clerical, as well as a couple of part-time. That comes to a total of $1 million. Looks like we got an extra one in there, $216,000.
I just changed that slide today, so I
Got a little
apologize.
extra little number in there.
Can we go back to that list?
Sure.
For the administrators, can you speak to, is there a general assumption there, or is it a building by building?
It was done building by building, looking what the needs were and what the change in population was. I mean, I can go through which schools they were if that helps, but basically that's, I have them listed here, but.
Is it
we went through-
primarily assistant principals, or what's the?
Yes, I believe that is the main area, was the assistant principals.
Okay.
And in some cases, it is a .5 position, and others it's a 1.0 FTE.
Is that going to cause some assistant principals to have to go back into the classroom?
Go
Yes.
through the building, go through the list.
I mean, I don't
Yeah,
have to
you
go
want me
through
to
the
go-
buildings, I'm just asking,
Oh, okay.
is it sort of through attrition that we're eliminating some of those assistant principals or moving people around, or are some of them actually going to have to go back to to the classroom?
Combination.
It's a
Okay.
combination, yeah.
I had just a quick question on, when we talk about eliminating or reducing teachers, this is all relative to the reorganization, because last year, we were like, what, how many, 30 teachers down?
Right.
So it kind of hasn't, it's not clear to me yet.
Yeah, so we were looking at these numbers, and last year with full-time FTEs, I think it was, 1,053, Ravonda?
1,053.
53, and then this year, when we did our staffing and position control, it's 1,047. So we've realized 5.5.
And that's between the interventionist area and the teacher area, as they're both.
So those numbers, does that make sense? Those numbers have reduced.
And just to remind you too, even though last year the numbers at a board meeting in the spring may have looked like we cut that many, we end up adding back because of class size numbers going up. So positions were added back after your board meeting where you heard that.
Well, no, the 30
So-
I was talking about was after the second semester had already also
This
started.
Open positions,
No, she's
is that-
referring to vacancies.
Vacancies,
We will
not
have,
being able to
To fill them.
positions.
that's
But
separate.
yeah, the kids are still there. We just
Yeah.
couldn't fill the vacancies.
Right.
A couple more questions on this. On the interventionists, is that going to leave any buildings without one? Okay, so these are extra?
Some buildings had two, Valeska
Valeska
without
doesn't have
one.
any, 'cause it's
Okay.
pre-K.
Okay.
And then there were some with two.
Okay.
Well, there was at one point in time, you didn't need an interventionist and an assistant because they were doing the same thing basically, or supposedly.
And then on the aides, 15 and a half, can you just give me an idea of what kind of areas you found? Are they all special ed, or some of them are a combination of special ed,
They-
regular division?
They are special ed, but they're in cross-cat rooms, so where they're a blended situation. That's where those are kind of scattered throughout. I can't say a particular
Okay.
building there, but
Mhm.
scattered throughout the district.
So,
Maureen can speak to
so have you
that.
found out that we don't need them in those classes? Is that it?
Actually, they're not cross-categorical rooms. The ones that we looked at were TAs that were serving students in the inclusive setting.
Right.
So what the conversation is going to be is how can we better serve students who are in the inclusive setting through technology, accommodations, not an actual physical person being there to help. That's where we need to head. There's, not special education in science and social studies. That's not an identified area, but there's a lot of reading in those areas. So it's going to push.
So an inclusion room,
If
does
a
it have
child-
does it have, through special ed laws, does it have a cap on how many kids can be in there?
Yes.
In an inclusion? So if you would go over that cap, then there would have to
Then
be
you
an
have a TA,
assistant?
yeah, yes.
Okay, but
And in
it's
those
keeping
areas
okay.
where we're mandated per state regulations, there will be TAs, yes. The ones where we've had extras, we've been able to add some TAs into those inclusive settings, and that's in one area. I'm not saying we want to do this, but it's one area we looked at.
Okay.
We'll still meet the state requirements for TAs that are required.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, any other questions on this slide then? And this just shows by category what the savings would be, total reductions at $2,419,000, and then other negotiated items. This still is just not enough, but this was probably what I consider our second go-round, as we put a lot of effort into the current year we're in and prepping for it and making cuts, and this is our next effort. And Mike will take it from here then.
Carla did forget to introduce herself.
Yes.
For those in the audience that don't know, Carla Eman is the Director of Budgets and Compliance, and I'm Mike McKenzie, Comptroller of the district. So I know all of you know, but some people in the audience may not know. So I realize that about halfway through. But next slide is other revenue issues. There's a lot of stuff that you hear about at the state. Carl and I went to a conference last week. We heard a lot about the different revenue issues going around at the state. The first issue that you hear a lot about is general state aid. Senate Bill 231 is the Senator Mainer's bill. There's been a lot of talk about that bill, and it's currently was scheduled for a vote and was pulled. I heard today it was pulled because of issues with the city of Chicago was the biggest gainer in that bill of about $175 million. So at this point, it's not scheduled for any kind of vote. I personally doubt it will pass, but it would be very good for District 150 Peoria Public Schools if we, call it myself, if that were to pass, it'd be very good for Peoria Public Schools. But everything I'm hearing, I don't really expect it to pass. Other issues with general state aid, you hear a lot more school districts looking at this very seriously right now. Every year in April and May, Dr. Kinney's here, he could back me up on some of this. Every year we would hear proration over the last 7 years. What is it going to be next year? April and May, you'd start hearing rumors about 69%, and then when you got 89%, you were like, whew, thank gosh, we got, better than we expected. This year, it seems like people are taking it more seriously that we may not get any. Now, some of that's probably because higher education didn't get any this year until just recently. So some of these schools, especially downstate, that don't have enough money to run the district if we don't get general state aid, are talking about not opening in August. I don't think that's really practical here in Peoria County. We will have gotten not all of our property taxes, but this first big installment on June 25th or so. So we'll have plenty of money to start school, and I've got some cash flow statements later in the thing. The real issue is general state aid comes in 22 payments over 11 months, so about the 10th and the 20th of every month starting in August. So if we don't get our first general state aid payment in August, and they still haven't solved it down there, we're going to have to seriously talk about, should we have fall extracurriculars? I know that's something that nobody ever wants to talk about. These things that would be terrible for the students, but they are optional. That's something we need to talk about in in Peoria Public Schools. Not opening is probably not an option. I mean, it's just not practical when we would just have gotten our property taxes. Some schools are talking about those kind of things, not opening in August, postponing opening until they get general state aid. I don't think that's practical here in Peoria. But if we don't get general state aid in the fall, we will be talking about serious, impossible to consider, but we will have to consider those kind of cuts. So I just want to throw that out there so we're talking about it. Pension shift is the other one there. Senate Bill 436 is out there right now. It passed the Senate on April 18th. It's currently in the House. That's actually, there's a lot of talk that will pass, and what that does is shift the pension costs, the normal pension costs of about 7% down to the school, the local school districts. And what I mean by normal cost is when we talk about that on behalf payment, the $24 million in our budget, that is the creditable earnings, TRS creditable earnings, times about 35%, which is the normal cost plus the unfunded portion. So about 35%, that's where we get to 24 million. If they shift down 7%, which is what they're talking about normal cost, it would be our creditable earnings, which in last year were $67,815,000. That's what we paid our TRS eligible employees, teachers, principals, administrators that are in TRS, times 7%, that would be $4.75 million. That would be shifted down to the local Peoria Public Schools. There's no provision in Senate Bill 436 to be able to tax for that shift. We currently tax for IMRF and for Social Security for those employees like myself that are in IMRF, the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. We tax in Fund 50 for those two items. But there is no provision in Senate Bill 436 for that pension, to be able to tax for that pension shift. And there's still talk about phasing it in over several years, but I haven't heard what that is. But that's a potential $4.7 million increase in expenses with no way to increase revenues to cover for it. And like I said, it's already passed the House, or passed the Senate on April 18th. And it's currently in the House. I didn't write down what committee it's in right now. So, property tax freeze, that's Senate Bill 318. There's also a House Bill 696. It passed the Senate back in the fall. Senate Bill 318 did. It's currently in the Rules Committee in the House. there's a lot of talk that that's going to pass. Property tax freeze, bigger issue from other districts than us. We've not really had property tax increase over the last couple of years. We had a 0.845%, so less than 1% this year. But it would affect us some if there was a property tax freeze. And certainly if we decided to issue bonds for any reason, if we wouldn't be able to do so if this passes. But there's a lot of talk that this will pass, but we're using our crystal ball a little bit when it is. And Senate Bill 318 is the one that's I've heard is most likely to pass. The House Bill 696, which I don't have up there, is less likely, but who knows? Things can change down in Springfield any given day. The other issue with not necessarily a revenue issue, but like Carla said, we're talking about a $3.9 million budget this year, and these cuts we're talking about are $2.4 million. That obviously doesn't get us there. So the next stage that we're going to be looking at is, what's discretionary out there, and these are going to be difficult things. Athletic supplies and materials, that's discretionary. The accounting department has a supply budget. HR has a supply budget. Payroll has. So we're going to be talking about cutting all those by 10 or 20%. It's not going to be huge money, but we're going to have to feel the pain further if we're going to get anywhere close to balancing this budget, unless we have serious revenue issues. And so I don't have those numbers in front of me, and we haven't added those, but they are going to. And then the other issue is I talked about general state aid, above about do you look at canceling fall extracurriculars, but even if you don't go that drastic measure, do we need a sixth football coach? Do we need a third basketball coach? Do we need them? Probably, but those are other issues that are going to have to be hard decisions that we're going to look at. The things that are not required to be done by the district, because so many of these things we're talking about are required, but some of this stuff is just not. So.
Buildings, looking at buildings.
Buildings, do we consolidate a building? What's the next building that we could consolidate? There's one that's always picked on, but, or not picked on, but, recognized as a possible, the next one that you would close. But that's an issue that, could we do it? Could we squeeze the 200 and some kids that are there into another middle school? That's a drastic thing also that I don't want to be talking about, but we cannot continue to have budget deficits because we don't have fund balances to support them. So anyway, that was the doom and gloom slide, sorry. So that's the next year, fiscal 17 and beyond issues. We also have the budget amendment for tonight for fiscal year 16. If you think of any other questions, we can always back up to the fiscal year 17 issues. But every year we need to amend the budget. Not all school districts go through this process, but it's the usual practice of the board to amend the budget every year. The reason for that is a lot of our initial budget is adopted in August when we don't have full information, especially with the grants. We don't have full information about what we're going to get and stuff in August, so we put an estimate in the budget, but then we amend them with the states and federal people throughout the year, and this is the official recognition of those changes in a formal amendment. As far as the process here, we'll put a public notice in the paper this week. The budget will be on display for 30 days. I gave it to Chris right before this meeting so he can put it on the website. I have a printed copy that I'll put on the front desk in the morning so for public display if anybody wants to look at it. We must have a public hearing, so we'll do that at the June 13th board meeting, and then officially adopt the budget on that June 13th board meeting. So we can make changes up to that time. The main reasons for it this year, you always have federal funds budgets, IDEA, the different title funds. We also, so that's the, probably the biggest changes are within the federal funds budgets. The property tax levy is finalized. When I created the budget in August, we assumed a 1% increase. We also had a different CFO by the time we actually did the levy, so the amounts changed. They always change, but so we had that issue. So I'm updated property tax levy issue. When we did the budget, we had the general state aid hold harmless, which was not included, and personal property replacement taxes decreased more than I expected this year when we did it, because again, personal property replacement tax has been in the news recently, and all they do is they get, sometime in mid-August, they post a percentage on their website of what they think it's going to go up the next year, and that has not been the case this year, and there's been a lot of stuff in the news about that. And then one of the big things within buildings and grounds and transportation is utilities and gas. Obviously, we've had a mild winter. We also hedged, myself and Roger Anderson looked at, hedging gas and stuff in the fall, so we got very good prices this year, plus we had, a mild winter. Plus the gas prices with transportation, as everybody knows, gas prices are way less now than they were a couple of years ago. Plus, we bought all the short buses, which are gas buses compared to diesel buses, and they get way better gas mileage. So, so transportation, recognized quite a bit of savings in gas. But then their bus drivers went up, but then their contracted buses went out because they've been done a good job of recruiting bus drivers this year. So, so that's just shifted around within transportation. So, here's the updated numbers. Okay. This is the operating funds. This is the 4 operating funds we talk about. Education funds, this first column. When we were talking about it in the fall, we were talking about like $4.8 million deficit. Now we're talking 3.9, which is still not acceptable, but it is better than it was. Realistically, it will probably come in when we do the audit a little better than that, because some people have supplies and capital outlay budgets that we are encouraging them not to spend the money if they don't need to. And, so most likely when we do the annual, but it won't be hundreds of thousands. I mean, it won't be millions. It might be, it'll be some. So, but the biggest problem with that is this end of year projected fund balance, 5.5 million negative. That means even though we get our first property taxes in June 20th, as of June 30th, we're expecting to have a $5.5 million deficit. That and cumulative, we're talking, between all the operating funds, we're talking about a $9.7 million deficit. So that means we've borrowed money from working cash and to fund these deficits. And that's why I'm saying it's not supportable to continue to have deficits. Like, we've had this problem for years, I understand, but O&M is actually probably, as a percentage of revenue, even a bigger issue with being $1 million deficit. So we've got some work in O&M to do. I'm meeting with Dave Myers about looking at that. And then transportation has the same issue. We did buy, well, my pointer seems to have died, but we did buy the short buses, the $936,000 in capital outlay. Oops, I wasn't really ready, but we switched to the second slide. The other, this is the non-operating funds. Debt service, remember, even though it has a $10 million ending balance, that is dedicated towards paying bonds. We get, we get our first set of money on June 25th or so, so that $10 million reflects that kind of money that's dedicated towards paying our bonds. Capital projects, there's actually, there's a problem with that balance, because that's not true. That's not correct projected ending balance, so I got to fix that. And then working cash, even, we'll have a $35 million balance because we abated some of our taxes to capital projects this year. So the math is wrong somehow there, so I got to fix that spreadsheet. So then tort and life safety is also in the non-operating funds. So that's the amended budget. If you need more detail, let me know. I can get that information for you. Can you flip to the next slide? I don't remember what it says. Sorry. All right, here's the property tax levy comparison. I talked about this in the previous slide, but somebody had asked questions about where we fell with property tax levy compared to the previous year. The first line there, rate setting EAV went up 11 million, so it's 0.845% increase from the year before. So not quite 1%. If that one Senate bill passes, it will be restricted to 0 for 2 years. And then if you look, the far right-hand column is the difference from year to year. And the difference, where the rate increased, is in our bond and lease levies, IMRF, tort. So it's not our operating levies. It doesn't increase any of our education fund, our O&M percentages. It's just in bonds and lease payments have continued to go up because when we issued those bonds back in 2008 and 2009, we were expecting a 3% increase in EAV every year. And so that has not happened. And so those the levy required to pay those bond payments have continued to increase every year. And then IMRF and the other funds. So it did go up a little bit from 1 year to the next, and so Dr. Crott had gotten some questions about that and wanted me to include this in this slide. So this is a lot of numbers, but really the difference column on the right column and the difference in that first rate setting EAV are the important numbers. And then cash flow statements.
Mike, could we go back to that one just
Sure.
a second? How many of these are we capped on?
We're capped on the education, the 218 for education. The O&M rate of 0.5 is capped. The transportation 0.2 is capped. Working cash at 0.05. Fire safety at 0.05. Special ed at 0.04. And then the lease at 0.05.
Okay, and just by way of explanation, how does that cap get in place? What causes that?
It's state law causes those certified rates to be locked at those percentages. To change it, you'd have to do a referendum in the school, in the city here, and get the voters to approve any increases from that or decrease from that certified rate. And then the other bonds are unlimited for need, or the other, lines are unlimited for need, although we try to limit ourselves because we don't want the overall rate to increase if we can help it, so.
So when you say we limit it?
Like tort and IMRF, those bonds, like tort, as an example, has a negative balance even now, and so we could up that tort levy if we wanted, but it would cause the overall rate to increase, and we've been trying to keep that as those increases as small as possible.
So if you were to develop a schedule here that would say, on all the funds that were not capped, this is as much as we could do to try and make this up, can you put a schedule together that would show us what that looks like?
Say that
I don't care how obnoxious it is. I want to see it.
Say that again.
How much can we add to any one of these funds that we're not capped on?
Oh, okay. All right.
So I understand we're trying to keep the rates reasonable and low.
Sure.
But the state of Illinois is nailing one foot to the floor and expecting us to run a marathon, and we can't keep doing that. So at some point, we either have to stop doing things or we have to start raising taxes further. We raised them the past year. Nobody likes that, but what are our choices here, other than to say, we need to look at it? So at some point, the levy for 2016 has to be addressed in a way that says, what do we have to do in order to avoid running out of cash and, in fact, stopping the functions we're supposed to do by state law?
Sure. Okay, I'll work on a spreadsheet for you.
I would appreciate that, and you know what I'm talking about here.
Yep, I understand. Yep,
It's sort of the horror story, but if you don't show the horror story, nobody starts to even think about what that could be.
Right.
And I've got a couple other questions, but we'll wait till the end of the presentation.
All right.
So, thank you.
All right, here's cash flow estimates. I know this is a super busy slide. Up until its actual numbers through March of 2016. I did not add the April 2016 numbers in here yet. So then it projects based on averages from previous years. But the important thing here is that monthly ending cash. It's the third from the right. It looks like a lot of money. I mean, at the end of April, we're talking $13 million. 13,323, 198, about in the middle there of 2016. That seems like a lot of money until you realize that salary and benefits for Peoria Public Schools is about $10,800,000 a month. And when you have $13 million in the bank at the end of the previous months, if it's all available, but some of that we try to invest. And so, this time of year, we're actually, okay, should we sell some investments trying to, or are the state going to get general state aid payments here in time? And so then next year, it's the same kind of thing. March and April, we're talking about 12 million, 13 million, 11 million. Again, that seems like a lot of money, and I agree. And in my household, it would be a huge amount of money. But here, when you're talking about $10,800,000 just for payroll, that does not pay the utility bills, that does not pay anything else that we have to pay every single month. It's big numbers. So you're depending on receiving money the next month to be able to pay all our bills. And so far the state has been consistent. So then the next column is, what if we don't get general state aid next year? $4.2 million a month, $2.1 million right now on about the 10th, and another $2.1 million about the 20th of the month. And so if we do not get that money, we'll be talking about end of the month balances potentially in May of almost negative $10 million, which means we'll have to go borrow that from somewhere, tax anticipation warrants, and that's assuming you can borrow, because the banks are going to be saying, or usually you get those from banks, and they're expecting you to get tax money, and so it'll be a very difficult choice we'll be having. And so you'll see there in November and December of 2016 where you go from 5.3 million at the end of the month to a minus 203,000 at the end of December. So at that month we would not have enough money to cover payroll in December 2016 if the worst case scenario happens and we do not get general state aid from the state. Now I'm not saying, I've heard vastly different opinions about whether that's going to happen. I've heard some people say just be baffled by it. I was down in Springfield a couple weeks ago, and a couple of the Democratic senators, and just were baffled by that. We even questioned whether we're going to get general state aid, and then others would say, you really need to start planning for it. So I don't know how likely that is, but that is the worst case scenarios. If we don't get general state aid next year, we will be talking about how do we make payroll in November and December of 2016.
And it's already tight. I think what's important to note is it's tight this year. Right now is our worst time. We're waiting for that June 20th, June 25th to come around to have to monitor daily extremely closely how the cash flow is coming in and out to make sure that you're making the bills and, that everything's balancing out right now. So it's very tense right now. I can't imagine a year from now, how things are going right now with cash flow.
Right. Next slide, Carla. Sorry. Okay, the only other thing I had here was later in the agenda, we do have a PBC bond refunding. I wanted to talk about it a little bit here, just so that people understand what it is. What we're doing is amending the lease agreement with the PBC and agreeing to levy the new amounts once they're issuing it. The PBC bonds from 2009A, which is, I think, the Glen Oak project, are callable starting December 1st, 2018. So 2 years before that, assuming rates are favorable, which would be this coming December 1st, there's an opportunity to sell new refunding bonds to basically refinance the old bonds. And if you want some more details on how all that works, I love this kind of stuff. I love playing with the bonds, but most people don't. So, but the important thing here for our taxpayers is it will save them considerable amount of money. I mean, it's $2 million in future taxing that we won't have to do for this. But the also important thing is it will not affect our operations at all. All it will do is will affect that tax rate that I told you about on the other slide. It'll enable us to levy slightly less, like $2 million is big money. But so it will decrease the future tax rate for that lease, the PBC lease line on the tax levy. So, and like I said earlier, Dr. Kinney is now the head of the PBC here in Peoria. Public Building Commission is PBC, and so he is here tonight in case there's any further questions about this. But it's a good opportunity for the PBC to help us save money, and so Dave is helping us out to get this done. So. And then questions.
Anybody else have any questions other than Mr. Coy?
Go ahead. Do you have some? Go. Okay. I have a few here. Going back to the budget, we show a total purchase services of $24,248,000 and some change. You can pull that back up.
Whoops.
It's a ways back there, but.
Okay. Yep. Is this the line? Purchase services?
Purchase services, that's, yeah, and then the next one was the summation of them on the next one because
Next
it's a
page.
higher number.
Next slide.
Yeah.
So it's 24,248,84 is the purchase services across all funds, right?
Okay, and then the question would be, and this is not for precision, but just general sense, what percentage of that spending is discretionary and what percentage of it is mandatory?
Purchase services includes, like, if you just look under tort, that's our insurance, workers' comp, and property and casualty, so probably none of that is discretionary. Could you flip back to the previous page? If you look at buildings and grounds, the $3 million there, a lot of that is utilities. The $1.25 million in transportation, some of that is the first student, things like that. Probably half of that is the first student stuff. Purchase services within the ed fund.
It's just going to be various contracts.
Assessments, Skyward, Pinpoint, all that stuff.
Yeah, Skyward comes into there.
NWA.
I don't have it in front of me, so other than that, but I mean, so in the other funds, it's less discretionary. Certainly within the ed fund, there is some discretionary. Some of that's paid by grants. Some of that's, and off the top of my head, I don't know what the percentage of that is really discretionary.
Yeah, and that's not to say that they aren't worthy expenditures, but at some point, if it's not mandated, and we can't find any other way to pay for it, we ought to just stop it.
Right.
And I don't know what that percentage of that is, but that's a big number, and.
I'll run a report for you and email it to you.
I think that would be helpful for the board to be able to look at that and say, okay, from top to bottom, there are things that we must do, and there's things that we'd really like to do, and there's things that are discretionary, and you need to stop doing the things that you aren't absolutely forced to do by state law.
Yeah, since I've been here, that's what we've been doing.
Well, need to do
And that's
more.
where I said about the 10% cuts and the 20% cuts. I mean, some of this discretionary stuff is going to be very difficult within athletics, within, just our individual department budgets, which aren't big. A couple thousand here, a couple thousand there, I think we need to really, and I'm sure I'm not going to be popular amongst the staff for saying those kind of things, but to get to the number where we need to get, because we don't have to get to zero, we need to get to a positive number, because we have to fund this $5.5 million negative within the education fund. So getting to zero isn't the goal. Getting to some amount of a positive year-to-year revenues over expenditures has to be the goal.
Okay, second item, natural gas hedging, you're going to do that again?
Yeah, I do that every year. This last year I hedged 70% of the expected, which was good because the expectations didn't happen. So I do that I look at that. And actually, I was talking to our vendor up at a conference last week, the School Business Officials Conference, and talking about possibly, because we locked in electricity rates too about a month ago for the next year, and because they were at historical lows, they've gone up a little bit since then. So
Yeah, I think you're going to see an opportunity to do some more of that and get some futures out there that are better than what they could be.
I agree.
You want to do that when it's hot and steamy and nobody's using gas in the summertime, not in the wintertime. How long, under these circumstances, before we end up on the ISBE watch list because of our financial situation?
Right now, we aren't, because we have the working cash bond. I'd have to run the numbers to figure out when, I don't have that in front of me, so I can run some of the numbers for that.
That would be nice to know, because there's incremental levels of that.
Right.
And I think we're skirting right on the edge of that at this point. Next question, how much will the debt service increase between this year and next year?
For bonds?
For all bonds and so forth.
I don't have that in front of me. It increases,
Yeah.
but I don't know by how much.
I'm guessing.
I've got a spreadsheet of that. I can email that to you.
I'm guessing it's close to $1 million. So we're going to have to pay $1 million more in debt service just to keep even with what we've committed to in the past. And then what are our options if we do run out of cash? I assume tax anticipation warrants or something like that?
Yeah, there's tax anticipation warrants, there's teacher's orders, there's a couple different options, but obviously it's not a situation we want to be in. So tax anticipation warrants would be the first thing with the local bank.
Can we borrow money outside the United States?
I have no idea. That's
Europe has, I'm not being funny. Europe has negative interest rates. There are mortgage holders in Europe right now that are getting a monthly payment for having taken on debt.
Yeah, I don't know if that's, I'd have to check with like Chapman and Cutler or somebody that, knows more about that. I can.
It's insanity, but if we can take advantage of it, we ought to use it, because insanity seems to be the case in public finance these days.
Yeah.
The final question, I'm sure you're tired of hearing me, but I'm going to ask this one. What's the interest rate differential you would expect between the current 2009 Series A bonds and the ones that you would refund? You don't need that this instant, but...
Dave, do you have that, or?
And Dr. Kinney, congratulations, and I'm happy to see you in that role. Thank you.
We just know that there's an anticipation of about $2 million worth of savings, and that's over a period of years.
Right, that's the present value of that, probably, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a $4 million total, but it's present value back to $2 million. I don't remember the rates off the top of my head. They've got spreadsheets of, and that's assuming that rates stay favorable, similar to what they are now by December 1st, because these can't be issued until December 1st.
Right.
So.
Well, I don't think they're going to raise interest rates.
I think in my office I have a handout that Spirit Financial did for, anticipating what this will look like. So I'll scan that and send it to you.
Okay, well, I appreciate your forbearance with my questions. At some point, this can't go on. And your comment about extracurricular activities, and I had said this earlier, and that is perhaps the only way to get the public's attention and focus enough political pressure on Springfield is to do something that impacts people in a way that they just are so hopping mad. And I hope at some point there's a discussion about making some very, very difficult decisions on this board and getting the public's attention, because until the folks in Springfield come to their senses and do something about the state budget, we will be the ones that bear the brunt of all of this. And the children of this district and the state will bear the brunt of this. And it is incredibly irresponsible for the people in Springfield to be continuing to do what they do and to stick it to the schools of the state, where they claim in the Constitution that the education of the children of the state of Illinois is a primary responsibility of the state of Illinois, and they are completely and totally ignoring that responsibility. Thank you.
Other questions or comment to our Finance Department? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen. We're now at the place on our agenda that provides an opportunity for the members of the community who wish to address the board. As you know, we are all volunteers elected by you to oversee the development, implementation, and maintenance of a quality education for the students of Peoria School District 150. The board welcomes your comments and suggestions relating to this goal. Recognizing that you all have your First Amendment rights of free speech, we ask that your comments be focused on those issues within the board's authority. There are some issues we are not at liberty to discuss in public, such as personnel and other executive session topics. However, if you have a specific personal concern that needs to be addressed, we will get a staff person to help you. In addition, board members are accessible outside of these meetings. Our phone numbers and emails are listed on the website, psd150.org. We believe that, we realize that 3 minutes may not be enough time for some of you to express your thoughts, so we have installed a comment box over by the front door there for your convenience, and our board secretary will be collecting those comments after each board meeting to compile and share with the board's superintendent. When you are recognized, please come to the podium and state your name for our records. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and no one under age 18 may address the board unless accompanied by a parent, guardian, or teacher without the consent of the majority of the board. Ms. Sharon Cruz.
I believe most of the textbook expenditures that listed on my handout are burdens initiated by the last administration. From 2015 to May 2015 to April 2016, over $563,000 was spent for books. The report shows that there was one lost book each for Harrison, Hines, and Lincoln, 3 from Mark Bills, 2 from Washington Gifted, and 59 from Peoria High. The data shows the other schools had no lost books. No money was collected. The data states that an inventory was taken on July 1st, 2015. I certainly do not believe that the total number of lost books is 67. The FOIA response letter states at this time the district does not have a system in place to collect lost book fees. The Follett barcoding system, which cost over $400,000, does not provide a method of identifying the barcode number of what specific book was issued to which student. The district's old way was for each student to fill out a card for each book. Will that method be replaced by some other system? The hodgepodge of Follett orders, my number 12, was over 42,000. There could be replacements for lost books. I certainly wonder why $65,000 was spent on more reading mastery materials. Why did Richwoods need 45 IB mathematics texts and 45 AP American government texts? Why were new Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry book texts for $182,000 needed for all 3 high schools? I was curious to know how many orders are related to Common Core demands. Does the district feel compelled to yield to texts related to Common Core methods? I was especially curious about a $6,900 graphic arts grammar program, I'm sorry, I think I misread that, which purports to taking students beyond identifying parts of speech to using the parts of speech in patterns to express thoughts. The program shows children, especially non-English speaking students, that English sentences follow a specific pattern. I truly laughed when I found this description online. In the 80s, I developed a series of assignments teaching students the 8 patterns. The order of words followed in all English simple sentences and independent and dependent clauses. My point is not to brag about what I did, but to point out that Common Core has not discovered new ways of teaching grammar or anything else. That's not 3 minutes. Traditionally, teachers have been told what to teach, but not how to teach it. That is where our creativity and desire to respond to students' needs kicks in. Probably every teacher in District 150 has come up with a $6,000 way of presenting material. Why not ask teachers for their ideas? You may not have to spend any money on the superfluous programs. Excuse me.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Terry Knapp.
Yes, again, I find it interesting that when we talk about budgets and amended budgets and everything else, we never, ever mention attorney's fees. I don't get it. When are we going to research? I mean, Mr. Retberg comes to us with a $150,000 price tag and can't even bargain contracts. It makes no sense to me. I hope you're looking at down the road changing attorneys, changing in-house attorneys to get an attorney that can do some collective bargaining in-house. Right now, I guess the firm from up north that charges us mileage to drive down here is involved in a case in the Supreme Court. Don't care. That's not in Peoria. It has nothing to do with Peoria. They need to be down here bargaining the teacher contract in a positive way, figuring out a way to do interest-based bargaining and get through this in the most positive way necessary so that our teachers don't come back all perplexed and the students suffer. You know, if there's not good morale, there's not going to be good education. So you need to work on that. You need to get attorneys that are going to work with teachers and not charge us an arm and a leg. $1 million a year should be on the budget, an amendmentary budget, and a projection to save money. We added an administrator last month, new administrative position. I think it's well needed or much needed in this district that we do something for mental health in our district with students, but not at this time adding $150,000 to our budget. That wasn't in there. That's going to be an added burden for next year. Also, it's important that we talk about busing. Last year, in the last 5 years, Lathan bused kids across the street, around the corner, and everything else. I think we're straightening that out. I know it's a problem for some of us that students shouldn't be walking too far in the wintertime, 5- and 6-year-olds and so forth, but we need to project a savings in busing. Busing is costing us more every year. The state used to pay 75%, now they pay 25%. We need to work on that busing component. The new Peoria alignment, I attended the Rockford alignment, and in the Rockford alignment, there was a $300,000 a year charge, $100,000 to the city, $100,000 to the school district, and $100,000 to the businesses, basically. Now I read in the paper where we're going to have $450,000. I assume, under the Rockford model, that we're going to pay $150,000 of that a year to some people to advise and coordinate the community. We don't need to coordinate the community for $150,000 out of the education fund, $150,000 from the city who doesn't have it, and $150,000 from the businesses who never gave us money, who never gave us anything when they were under the strategic plan to give us coupons for teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Mr. Savino Sierra.
I was ready to go home, all those questions you're asking and all that, and you can't afford the public speakers 5 minutes. You saw tonight, you ringing that bell, you know, like heaven's trying to get hold of us. But this, this is what I say. You gotta change that time that the public speakers need, and that's 5 minutes. Yeah, and I'm not going to rest till we get that. Also, you're going to have to find ways to reduce our expenditures too. I don't care how you do it, but we got to do it. And you know, I think we got a lot of freebies, giveaways, you know, that you know, in our goodness, we try to do what we think is best for our kids, but there's a lot of waste that I know personally, that I see, that a lot of these kids on these meals in the summertime, they're used to a bag of popcorn or a candy bar and a soda pop, you know. They don't want that good meal that they serve for them, you know. They'll eat the cookies and that, but that's about it. The rest, they don't. And I know by experience that I see this stuff, you know what I mean? Some of you people ought to get out and notice that. And we got to get reduce some of the administrators, because that's costing us a lot of money too. And maybe we can do that just temporarily, but we gotta start watching our money better so we don't keep getting in the hole. And with this, make sure we get 5 minutes to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. Mr. Dan Walther. Good evening.
Good evening, President Ross. My name is Dan Walther. I'm a citizen and an elected school board member. And there are some of you that are probably wondering, why is an elected school board member speaking at this podium? I am doing this because, and I'm going to preface these remarks, I had addressed a letter to the board. The board was kind enough to let me sit in on executive session, but chose not to discuss it in there. And I asked one of the board members why that wasn't discussed there, and I was told that it needed to be discussed in open session, that it wasn't a topic for executive session. So I want to preface that before I made these remarks. Those of you that are Catholic are familiar with the term purgatory. When you go through life and you die, and before you go to heaven, you go to purgatory. As an elected board member in District 150, I'm in purgatory. Purgatory is the time from when you're elected till the time of July 1st when you're seated to do that. In between, I'm in my operating hell. I had asked when the board member had resigned, when Mrs. Butler had resigned, there were a number of people who had turned in their resumes. I had asked the lovely Daphne Dixon if I could have a copy of those, and she told me I couldn't. I had to end up filing a Freedom of Information request to find out who was running for this school board. Fortunately, after a couple of days, I was provided with that information. The other school board, new school board member and I, had drafted a letter, and basically what we asked to do was to be part of the interviewing process. We have two lame duck board members who in 6 weeks will be retired, and bless them for doing that. But the reality is, Dr. Babavia and I will be the ones dealing with this board member. I want to make it clear, I'm not opposed to the person who was selected. I'm very opposed to the process. I understand, council made it real clear to me that by law, I can't vote on anything to July 1st. I understand that. But this board had the opportunity to choose transparency over hiding issues. They had the opportunity to be inclusive of us instead of keeping us posted, leaving us out. I think what happens with this particular item that we have, as Peoria has, is we are the only school district in the state that has the 5-year term. We're the only school district in the state that has this lag time. It's an elephant that needs to be addressed, and I think we will do that at a future time. One other thing I wanted to go on as far as the budget. I think the budget presentation was excellent. I think one of the things that was missed was that in legislation that is going on right now, Senate Bill 3272, I believe is on third reading, which would allow school districts to have a police force again. If that is passed this time, and the district embraces that, we could save $250,000 by not renewing the police that we have right now, the contract that we have with the city of Peoria that's going on. The other thing that we didn't talk about is that we have 25 officers, probably less than that now. We have 5 management people in the security force department. I can't see of another area that you would have a 1-to-5 ratio for management. That wasn't even discussed, and that is in tort liability, and that is something we missed on this, and I think it's something you should look at, because we could save almost $250,000 by letting the police go, and we could do save some money with the management. The last thing I will say, I worked with Julie, who is the Peoria Teacher of the Year. My first time when I substituted here 4 years ago, I did kindergarten. God bless her. She does a great job. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any response to audience presentation? I do want to clear up maybe one thing. Mr. Redberg, would you respond to a letter that we received after the fact?
Well, yes. Yeah. I think 2 points, and I discussed these with Mr. Walther beforehand, is that the legal authority under Illinois state law is vested in the 6 people who sit at the table up here, and they are the only people who have any right to vote or to make the decisions on behalf of this board. Secondly, with respect to the letter, which I guess actually came in after the process established by the board had been completed in terms of interviewing the candidates, but there's also a statutory limit of a requirement that when a board member when there's a vacancy on a board, that the board has 45 days in which to fill that vacancy, and that 45 days was calculated to run on, if I recall correctly, was May 16th. And so if the penalty if a board does not appoint a member to fill a vacancy within 45 days is that the Regional Office of Education can actually take the decision from the board and appoint a school board member to fill a vacancy. So those are the 2 points that I would make in response to Mr. Walther's comments and the letter.
Any other comments from board members? Ms. Wolfmeyer.
Whether people like it or not, I feel like the people in District 2 elected me to a 5-year term that does not end until June 16th, or June 30th of 2016. And I think they expect me to make decisions and cast my votes on every issue that comes forward until June 30th. This isn't any different than how Congress works. Congress gets elected in November. They don't start voting and making decisions until they're sworn in, until after January. And although Mr. Cloyd and I may not know who you would prefer to work with as a board member, I think his 5 years and my 10 years on this board make us very qualified to interview and make decisions on the qualities in a person who would make a good board member. And so you can call me lame anything you want, but I fully intend to participate on this board in every issue until June 30th, ask questions, voice my opinion, and cast a vote on every issue that comes forward until June 30th, because I think that's what the public who elected me expects.
Any other
I just want
audience participation?
I just want to address a couple issues. The elected board members had not even received the names when the Freedom of Information letter was sent in. We had not even got that information. So I would be real concerned if somebody outside of the board had gotten that information before me as an elected board member. So I would think that we would have gotten that prior to anyone else getting it. The other thing that I think is a problem is that, and of course, Board Member Adler and I both were elected, and we went to the meetings, didn't discuss anything, could not come to the table until we were elected to the board on July 1. And if I'm not mistaken, that is the process that's been done for years. And just as Board Member Wolfmeyer says, you know, the president elected in November doesn't take the seat until January 16th. So that is not much different than that. But had there been people that were elected but had not been sworn in, there would have been 4 representatives from the 3rd district and 4 representatives from the 2nd district, which is illegal because it's set out to be 3 at each district. So it's impossible to have someone that has not been sworn into the board to come on and represent a district with 2 people already seated that still have time left on their time. So I think that it was handled correctly. And I understand that people get elected to this board and there's so much wonderful things happen, you want to come on this board quickly. I understand all of that, but we have to follow the rules, and that's the way it is.
Audience participation, any other comments on any participation? No. Would you like to? Mr. Cloyd.
Yes, this is a question for Dr. Karat. Regarding the replacement of the math textbooks at the high school level, what was the age of the books that was replaced?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Cloyd. I was going to make a comment, and I'll ask actually Susan to come forward. This is in reference to Mrs. Cruz's her overall theme had to do with textbooks, and the math books that were purchased. Those books were replaced, Mrs. Cruz, primarily because they were really outdated. Didn't have anything to do with Common Core. And remember, Common Core, I think it just gets convoluted, and they're all about standards, and it doesn't tell us how to do what we do and what to use in reference to materials. We didn't think it was fair for our kids to be taught from outdated textbooks that were not aligned with Illinois learning standards, and I'll have Susan elaborate further on that.
Well, actually, I think you covered that well. They were much older than most of the textbooks, so that's why the update for the math was done. Part of that was related to the standards to make sure that our students had things in the sequence that they should be in to prepare them for the upper levels of high school math eventually. And in terms of the reading materials, we are not purchasing a bunch of new reading materials this year. We have the teachers creating a lot of materials going forward, and we've put it into kind of some guidance documents. So we have teachers working very hard on developing that curriculum, so we're not making a bunch of new purchases for this next year.
Yep, and then Mr. Knapp talked about attorney fees, SEL, busing, and also alignment. And I'll start with alignment. Thanks for bringing it up. I think it's really an exciting time for our district. I don't know if you were at the State of the Schools where we talked about the wicked problems, and it's an opportunity to sort of mobilize efforts and resources, and so there's that optimism in terms of hope overall for our kids in our city. But you may have read Journal Star, Miss Adams' article where she referenced the 450 for 3 years, and so it boils down to 150,000 a year, and 40 of that would go for membership and use of support from Nashville, USA, and those sorts of things. But the idea is to actually find sponsors, and there's quite a bit of enthusiasm and commitment from the community and from businesses to assist with this, because it really will be a collaborative effort with, again, a variety of stakeholders. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm happy to keep everybody informed about that. So, we're looking at a range of 75 to about 90 to bring someone in someone has to lead the charge and be a champion to get
the boards and the task and get the work done. So that's what this is all about. And SEL, it's not 150 either. We've not finalized the contract, but it will be significantly less than that. So you throw out that number in terms of the director. And as you referenced, it's very well needed in our district, particularly support for the kids and families. And I think we're doing a nice job with transportation, and we continue to project, and we're seeing gains there, and we'll keep the board and the public informed in reference to projections.
On the textbooks, one of the things that keeps coming up is charging for lost textbooks. Am I correct that students who are on free and reduced lunch do not pay textbook fees? Is that still correct?
That's correct.
So my guess is we probably can't force them to pay for textbooks.
Right.
And what percentage of our students are on free and reduced lunch?
About
Lost ones we do. But what are the chances of being able to collect it?
Right, very slim, yeah.
Okay, that's just a comment.
Policy says you do collect it, and you can.
Well.
You have to change your policy.
Right,
Mr. Cloyd, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just that when I met with each of the 3 high school principals last summer, one of the things that was brought to my attention in particular was the ancient vintage of our textbooks in mathematics. And I'm glad to see that the district has addressed that. Some of these were, 15 to 20 years old. I mean, this was not something that was like yesterday's issue. This was a long time ago.
Right.
And I don't know what physical condition they were in, but they certainly weren't consistent with what was being taught in other classes and other schools that had updated their textbooks. So I'm pleased to see that. I would also note that there was a phrase here, and somebody please write this down because you'd like to use it next year, and that is somebody from the podium said, "I don't care how you reduce expenditures." So just remember that.
Well, the comments on well, on a positive note, although it wasn't a public speaker, I'd like to thank Mr. Jeff Atkins Dutro for his comments on the teacher callback. He said the PFT is grateful for the efforts made by the district, especially Ravonda Johnson and Geraldine Hammer, and the hardworking crew that expedited the teacher callbacks. So that's a positive note. And working with Ms. Lana Myers to ensure that this happens. Thank you, Mr. Dutro. Proposed expenditures over $2,500. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Would you call the roll? Do we call the roll? No, okay. First reading of the update on Board Policy 7:190, student behavior. Who's going to update that? Okay, go ahead, start. No,
Okay, thank you, Madam President. On behalf of the Policy Committee, this is the first reading of Policy 7190. It relates to the implementation of Senate Bill 100. It is the first of 5 policies that are being changed and conform to the new state school code. It does not include the administrative procedures and other documentation that is quite lengthy, but the board votes on the policy. The administrative procedures and the other documents are put together by the administration. The board is advised of them, but the board doesn't have to vote on them. This is a very lengthy policy. I believe it's 7 pages. It's way too long as a policy, but it is proscribed by the state. It's the result of work by the Illinois Association of School Boards, by legal counsel that knows this issue. I mean, and also Mr. Rettberg, I believe, was a member of the drafting committee at the state level that worked on this. And then finally, the policy committee, in addition to meeting with the parent-teacher advisory committee, we've been working on this issue almost a year to get this into shape to present to the board. So it's not final. I would ask you to read it over. There are a lot of definitions that have been added. There are a lot of details that have been added. And it's probably going to require an annual review simply because the law will probably change again, and our ability to administer and execute the policy will probably inform us to a great degree as to how well this has been crafted. It's the best we can do at this point because we really don't know. It is also being made effective July 1st because the first session of Valeska Hinton starts, I believe, the 15th of July or the 16th of July. Therefore, it needed to be in place in order to apply to that start of that school session. The law actually requires this to be in place, I believe, by the 15th of September, but we wanted to get it done in advance. So, Dr. Karat, assuming this passes, I'm hoping that, and it will be up for a final passage next meeting, I'm hoping that it gives you enough time to work on it. I know you have several groups that are working on this behind the scenes so that you can put it in place and do the training and then the communication that's necessary for this, because this is going to require a great deal of detailed study and action. Did I miss anything, Ms. Gosdick?
No, I think the only thing is that we need to make clear that the policy itself can be adopted without the administrative procedure.
Right. Yeah, the policy will be presented without administrative procedures, but those have to be prepared and developed along with it. Otherwise, there's no way to actually do it and implement it. The other thing I would say is that there's a substantial administrative burden that goes with this, the forms to fill out and the documentation and so forth. Another unfunded mandate. We don't have any additional money to fund the staffing to do this, and the requirements for the type of remediation and support that are also progressively called for in Senate Bill 100 are not funded by the state of Illinois either, and the agencies outside the school district that would typically provide those services are also not being funded to the extent that they need to be. So we are asked to put a policy together that we don't have enough resources to administer, and we don't necessarily have enough community resources to execute. That being said, I would urge us, yes, business as usual, but I would urge us to take a look at it, please read it, and if you have any thoughts or comments, get back to me or Ms. Kostick or Mr. Retberg, and then we'll try and get this in your hands for the next meeting and approval. The other thing is the other 4 accompanying policies, policy 7200, 210, 220, 230, and 240 will also be presented on first reading at the next meeting and hopefully for approval and passage at the following meeting after that.
I wanted to thank you and Mrs. Kostick and Mr. Cloyd for your intense work and focus on helping us to be compliant with this and as we prepare for Senate Bill 100 next year. It's a lot of work, and so thank you, both of you.
In addition to that, I'd like to thank the parent-teacher advisory.
Yes.
Because we've worked very, very closely with them in order to make sure that we were all on the same page with this. Again, as Mr. Cloyd indicated, this was a very, very intense policy that we had to make sure that it was clearly defined and that we are able to accomplish it. So again, thank you very much for all of your input, Ms. Jackson. We appreciate everything that the council, all of the additional information that we shared and came up with to complete this for the first reading. So thank you very much, and to all of the members of your committee.
Thank you. Report of request under the Freedom of Information Act.
Thank you, President Ross. Since our last board meeting, we received 4 new requests. Of these requests, 2 were filled. We still have 2 pending. These requests were filled also. So now, as of today, we have received 21 requests for this calendar year at a cost of $7,514.39.
Thank you. Consent agenda, Mr. Cloyd.
Thank you, Madam President. The agenda for the consent agenda items this evening are as follows. Item number 1, gifts to the school district this meeting, $557.25, and the year-to-date, $93,350.94. Proposed action is that the following donations be accepted and letters of appreciation sent to the donors. A certificate for manicure valued at $15 by Vicky's Creative Nails to Richwoods, certificates for ice cream valued at $18 by Baskin Robbins to Richwoods, and certificates for Subway valued at $24.25 to Subway by Richwoods High School. Obviously, after they get their nails done, they get to eat ice cream and Subway sandwiches. Cash donations valued at $500 by K2 Benefits to Peoria Public Schools for Teacher Appreciation Week. Item number 2, payment of bills. Item number 3, the Human Resources Report. Proposed action is the appointment, employment, compensation, performance, resignation, retirement, or discharge of an employee. Item number 4, payment for travel. Item number 5, field trip approval, Von Steuben 8th grade class trip. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for Von Steuben 8th grade students to travel to Six Flags in St. Louis, Missouri, May 20, 2016, per Board Policy 6:240. Students will need to meet certain eligibility requirements promoting attendance and good behavior. The cost of the trip is $70 per student. No student will be denied attendance due to inability to pay. Item number 7, the field trip approval for Richwoods High School to Washington, D.C. Proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for Richwoods High School 10th and through 12th grade students to travel to Washington, D.C. January 19, 2017 through January 22, 2017 per Board Policy 6:240. Students will be giving a lifelong experience enhancing their knowledge of government and U.S. history. Students will witness firsthand the historical significance of the presidential nomination and the historic oath of office. The cost of the trip is $1,762 per student. World Strides has a flag financial assistance program and gift of education to help for students with the inability to pay. Item number 7, resolution to amend lease with the PBC and authorize levy and collection of annual tax. Proposed action is that the Board of Education approves an amendment to a lease agreement between Peoria Building Commission, PBC, of Peoria, Peoria County, Illinois, as lessor, and the Board of Education of the City of Peoria, Peoria School District number 150, Peoria County, Illinois, as leasee, and providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the rent payable by the district under such lease agreement as amended. And that concludes the consent agenda, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any topics or numbers anyone would like to remove for a separate vote? Okay. Seeing none, may I have a motion and a second?
I would propose approval of the consent agenda as submitted, Madam President.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion on any items? Ms. Wolfmeyer.
I'd just like to make a comment on the Human Resource Report. About a year ago, our numbers for campus security officers had gotten very low, and we hired about 5 of those to build the ranks back up. And I know on tonight's agenda, we have 1 resignation, and I know that's at least 2 since we hired those 5. So I certainly hope that we are going to be posting those positions and looking to replace them. I also hope that with the reconfiguration that you look at some of the schools that are getting an influx of students to see if we need an extra position in any of those places. But I urge the administration to do that.
Thank you. We'll do that.
Thanks.
Any other discussion items on any items? Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Deliberation agenda, suspension review. Ms. Wolfmeyer.
Item 8, suspension review. The proposed action is that the suspension review listed on the report dated May 9th, 2016 be approved as presented.
Second. Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Item 9 is expulsions. The proposed action is that the expulsions listed on the report dated May 9th, 2016 be approved as presented.
Second. Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Item 10, expulsion with the expulsion to be held in abeyance. The proposed action is that expulsion with the expulsion held in abeyance listed on the report dated May 9th, 2016 be approved as amended.
Aye. Second. So you used to say? Second.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Item 11 is revocation of expulsion held in abeyance. The proposed action is that the revocation of expulsion held in abeyance listed on the report dated May 9th, 2016 be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Item 12, revocation of board probation. The proposed action is that the revocation of board probation listed on the report dated May 9th, 2016 be approved as presented.
Second.
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye. Thank you. Item 13, board vacancy appointment. Mr. Shaw, would you join us? We're going to vote, but I'm going to have him stand here for a minute. The proposed action is that the Board of Education is asked to approve the appointment of Mr. Douglas Shaw to fill the vacant board seat for District 2.
Second.
Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cloyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
6 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Shaw. Thank you. We have, and I should have given this to you earlier, but we have an oath of office that board members usually read, and then a code of conduct that you can have. If you would read that.
I, Douglas Shaw, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education for Peoria Public Schools in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability. I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of school districts' assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek the hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting. And I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Shaw, would you like to have a few words? I know you have a daughter in the school district and you're married. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first, I would like to thank the board for their confidence in me. And at this point, I need to earn the support of the community at large. My background, I've been here for 19 years. I work for Caterpillar in the IT field. I'm also a part-time professor for the University of Illinois Springfield in the MIS department. And I'm also a veteran of the United States Army. All right, my family is here. And
Would you all stand? I believe your daughter's in the IB program at Richwoods, right?
She is, yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes, she is.
Thank you. All right. Does anybody have any other questions?
I would just like to welcome you to the board. Buckle your seatbelt.
I do want to say that this is, we don't often as board members, get to choose who we work with. So we just have to figure out how, to work with people. The only time we get to choose that is when someone, leaves the board. And, but other than that, it's whoever runs, and come to us. And we hope that they are running for the right reasons, for the betterment of the education for children. And I, as the veteran person on this board for 14 years, somebody said 15, but I think it's 14. I think it's 14
A long
years.
time.
I've worked with many, many different people. And I think we all come on the board with our aspirations and think we want to change this, change that, but we actually realize we're one vote and we are part of a team that have to work together to get things done. And thank you and welcome to the board. Anybody else? Okay. Daphne will get with you on your, how to get into the system and other things that need to be done from this point on. And you'll have a name tag by the time you come back. Okay. All right. So the next on the agenda is the resolution regarding honorable dismissals of full-time education support personnel due to reduction in force. The proposed action is that the Board of Education of the City of Peoria, City of Peoria School District 150 adopt this resolution regarding the honorable dismissals of full-time educational support personnel employees effective at the end of the 2015-16 school year. I thought this was 15, is that correct? 15-16 school term, pursuant of section 10-23.5 of the school code. The names of the affected employees are listed in the personnel report dated May 9, 2016. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Questions or discussion?
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Number 15, non-reemployment of part-time educational support personnel employees. The proposed action is that the Board of Education of the City of Peoria School District 150 adopt the attached resolution concerning the non-reemployment of the part-time educational support personnel employees listed thereon pursuant to section 10-23.5 of the school code. The names of the affected employees are listed on the personnel report dated May 9, 2016. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? May I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Presentations by board members or presentations and suggestions by board members. Yes, ma'am. Ms.
Thank
Jackson.
you, President Ross. On last Wednesday, we heard an outstanding presentation by our own Dr. Karat. I personally want to thank her and her staff for the outstanding presentation at the State of the Peoria Public School address. Everyone there was made aware of the great things that is happening within the Peoria Public Schools. And those things, those wicked things, continue to be a challenge for all of us. I'm extremely proud of our staff and our superintendent. I'm pleased that they are working with the city, the chamber, businesses, and all of our stakeholders on the behalf of our teachers, our students, and our community. I've never seen the collaboration that is happening now. And that should be given credit to the superintendent and her staff. This is done to best serve our students, our parents, and our community as a whole. Again, kudos to an outstanding job. I got so many phone calls, people calling me saying, you know, we've never heard an address like that, to lay everything out on the table so everybody could really understand it. So kudos to your staff for assisting you in what happened on last Wednesday.
Yes. I know that the hour is late, but I have a quick presentation for you from my National School Board Association visit. And I was very excited to attend that conference in Boston, Massachusetts. What I want to say was that Boston was the home of the first Latin school, founded in April 1635. And I'm told they also had the first teacher school, is what they call it, a teacher school. But Boston Latin School is the oldest public school in America, and it offered education to boys, rich or poor, whereas girls were being educated at home. So we've been behind for a while. I attended several workshops during this conference, which served to enlighten me on the fact that there is so much more to do in public education. Everybody is trying to support public education across the country and keep public schools in the realm of public schools. I have a little bracelet for everyone here. It says, "Stand up for public schools." So I also have some pins for you, but quickly, just a few highlights that we put together for you. That's for you too. And Chris is going to help me. Oh, somebody wrote it down. Chris is going to help me with that, and this will only take a few minutes.
Student achievement. Declare excellence in public education. Strengthen community engagement. Revolutionize board leadership. It's all happening at your NSBA 2016 Annual Conference. You're watching NSBA TV and welcome to Boston. I'm Rachel Kopchak. You can feel the excitement in the air as education leaders from across the nation kick off NSBA 2016.
Really looking forward to the networking and collaborating with them and sharing ideas. There's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Dan Rather and Robin Roberts. I think they're really going to be exciting to hear them speak, and I'm looking forward to the messages they want to share with us.
I'm just really excited to meet everybody that cares about us students because I'm a student advisor to the school board. This is my second year. I went to Nashville last year for the NSBA conference, and I love meeting all the people here.
Everyone here today has committed themselves to making their community's public schools the best they can be.
In his opening remarks to the National School Boards Association audience, he reminded everyone that you help to shape federal education policy and that public education is the new frontier. He acknowledged that we do have work to do, including that we insist our political candidates talk about public education, with a call to action that they need to state where they stand and commit that every child has access to a great public education.
I am a product of public schools.
Award-winning broadcast journalist Dan Rather, whose work you've seen on the CBS News in 60 Minutes, spoke about his own education in the public school system, remembering to practice gratitude and where he sees the future of our public education system.
The movement toward kindergarten and pre-kindergarten strikes me, as one man's opinion, as a very good.
Says no signal. Says no signal. Okay.
You got turned off and battery died.
Oh, I see. Battery died. Okay, that was exciting to me. You done?
Can I take that comment?
I'm sorry.
It will take a while.
Okay, well, we won't take up any more of your time. If you'd like, I'll show it next week, next time we meet. But I thought it was very exciting. I attended lots of workshops and took some excerpts from each one of the days to put together for the opening, then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, to present to you. So basically, I think unless we educate ourselves, we remain in the same, mindset. But it helps you understand that we're all in this together, and by working together, we can make some changes happen. There is a federal advocacy committee working through the National Association of School Boards and other individuals across the country. I've been asked to be on that federal advocacy committee from the Springfield NASB, so I'm not sure yet if I'm going to be working with them or not. But at any rate, I'll bring some more information to you next time. Thank you, Chris.
Reports.
What else?
Reports from boards and committees.
Any other committees?
We have a policy committee meeting Wednesday, May 11th at 9:30, and we will be taking up the additional details on Senate Bill 100 policies and a number of other policies in development.
Okay.
And I think, Mr. Redberg, we probably have one coming up here fairly quickly on another topic as well, as I recall, which was the student, the dating issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Teen violence and dating policy, which is a mandatory policy, and we don't have that, so we are working on that.
Right, okay. So that sort of fits in the same category as the other issues of behavior and discipline as well.
It's actually referred to in
right. So we have to put that one in place as well. So that will probably be part of the package, at least maybe on first reading next time, if we can. Thank you.
Yeah, you should know as board members, we're required to attend certain trainings, especially the trainings around the Open Meetings Act and that. But I think it's important that the biggest part of the education is networking with other people and learning, what we need to know to get the job done. Dr. Karat, you had an announcement you wanted to make?
Just kudos to the board just voted on a new police chief for Peoria Public Schools, DeMario Boone, and I noticed he was here and then he just stepped out, so please let him know that we give him kudos, but I realize it's late and he has to put the kids to bed, but congratulations to him. So say that, make sure you share it with your buddy for me, please. Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Mr. You want me to pass that to someone else? Mr. Adler?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.